Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back to another video. In today's one, I want to do part 2 of the PoE beginner's guide that I started here on the channel not too long ago. In today's one, I want to talk about currency, and more specifically currencies that I think are relevant for players who are just getting into Path of Exile or thinking about getting into Path of Exile for the first time. And chances are, if you're a veteran player, this video isn't going to have a lot to offer you, but if you're a new player, hopefully you learn a lot from it. Alright, so now we're in our stash on our currency tab, and yes, I would highly recommend investing in a currency tab if you plan on playing PoE for any length of time. It's going to save you a huge headache because it's going to store all your currency and display it nice and neatly for you, and also it's going to save you a lot of space, so I would highly recommend doing that, but that's besides the point. Anyways, let's go ahead and start off here at the very top with Scroll of Wisdom. So this identifies an item. So when an item drops unidentified in Path of Exile, it will have the red text saying unidentified. That means you can't see its modifiers, you can't craft with it, and you also can't equip it to your character. So you need to identify it first. In order to use a currency, just right click on it and then left click while you're hovering over the item. And now we can see the item's modifiers and we can decide what we want to do with it. Next up we have Portal Scroll here, so this creates a portal to town. So if you're in the campaign, or the acts rather, if you're in a random zone in the act, it will take you back to the previous town. And also if you're in the end game and you're in a map, it will take you back to the hideout in which you entered the map in. Next up we have Enkindling Orb and Instilling Orb. These two currencies apply enchantments to utility flasks. I'm going to go ahead and skip Enkindling Orb as I don't really think a new player is going to need to worry about this one. However, instilling orbs actually do have a purpose and can be quite useful even to somebody who is just starting off. So basically down here I have a granite flask, which is a utility flask, and as you can see there, that white line of text says use when you become chilled. Basically what an instilling orb is going to do is it's going to allow you to use the flask under certain circumstances. So all you have to do is right click on it and then left click over the flask, and you can change what it does. You can also take the flask over to your workbench, which you will get access to later on, and if you put it in and you go down to enchantments right here, you can go ahead and manually craft on any of these that you like. In my opinion, most people like to go with use when charges reach full. What this does is basically as you're killing monsters inside of a zone, you will be getting flask charges. Once the flask gets full charges, it will automatically use itself, so that way you don't have to manually press the button. Next up we have Blacksmith's Whetstone here, so this improves the quality of a weapon. Down here we have a Karuri axe, which is a one-handed axe, and as you can see it's doing some physical damage. We can also see its crit chance, attacks per second, weapon range, etc. But the point is this weapon is doing physical damage. What this whetstone is going to do is it's going to improve whatever type of damage the weapon is doing. So if we go ahead and apply it, as you can see, as we add quality, the physical damage text got highlighted blue and now it got improved. Also another tip here, you can right click on a currency and then hold down shift, and that way you can repeatedly apply the currency without needing to go ahead and drag it back and forth between it and the item, which is nice. It just saves you a little bit of time. Next up we have Armor Scrap, so this improves the quality of armor. So as you can see down here, we have a pair of shade green boots with some evasion rating. As you can see, this is also a normal rarity item. If we go ahead and improve the quality of it, we're going to improve that evasion rating on it. So depending on what the actual armor piece is offering, whether it's armor, evasion, energy shield, or a hybrid of the two, it's going to go ahead and improve that. Next up we have Glassblower Bauble here, so this improves the quality of a flask. So down here we have a Sanctified Life Flask, and as you can see it's recovering 1460 life over 1.5 seconds. What this bauble is going to do to a life, mana, or hybrid of the two flasks is it's going to improve the life and mana over that time duration. So as you can see here, if we apply it, go up to a maximum of 20% quality, now we're recovering 1752 life over 1.5 seconds. So keep in mind that's what it does to a life flask. To a utility flask, it does something different. As you can see here, we have a Taste of Hate, and at the very top there we have a duration of 8 seconds. So if it's a utility flask, what the bauble is going to do is it's going to improve the duration of the flask. So I'm going to go ahead and spam it. And now at 20% quality, as you can see, we're up to a total duration of 9.6 seconds. Next up we have Gem Cutter's Prism here, which improves the quality of a gem. As you can see down here, we have a Tornado Shot gem, and in order to see what quality will actually do for it, just hover over it and hold down Alt on your keyboard, and it will show you a line of text called additional effects from quality. And as you can see there, if we add quality to this gem, it will fire a secondary projectile. I also have another gem over here as an example, which is returning proj. So if we hold down Alt on this, as you can see, the additional effects from quality is supported skills have 10% increased projectile speed. All gems will do something different, so just hold down Alt to see what the quality will do. Next up we have Cartographer's Chisel, but we're going to skip this as this is for endgame. Next up we have Orb of Transmutation here, so this upgrades a normal item to a magic item. We have our one-handed axe here from before, so if we go ahead and apply this to it, it's going to go ahead and upgrade it to magic. When an item becomes magic in this game, it will turn blue, and every time you use an Orb of Transmutation on an item that is normal rarity, it will either add one prefix, one suffix, or one of each. It cannot add more than one prefix and one suffix, and it can also have no modifiers after using an Orb of Transmutation. In order to see what it actually has on it, you can read it, but if you don't know what type of affix it is, just hold down Alt on it, and as you can see, it will tell you what is a prefix and what is a suffix. Next we have Orb of Alteration, so this reforges a magic item with new random modifiers. As you see down here, we have our magic one-handed axe, and on it we have a prefix and a suffix. We have added fire damage and lightning resistance. If we go ahead and use this Orb of Alteration on it, it's going to reforge these modifiers and give us something else. Keep in mind there's a small chance it will actually reforge it and give you the same existing modifiers, but that is a pretty low chance of happening. And as you can see, now we have a single suffix, which is increased global accuracy and light radius. That brings me to the next currency, which is Orb of Augmentation. So this augments a magic item with new random modifiers. As you can see on this, it also says magic items can have up to 2 random modifiers. So because this item is magic and it already has a random suffix on it, if we go ahead and use this Orb of Augmentation, I am guaranteed to slam a random prefix on it. And as you can see, we hit added fire damage. So if it's a magic item and it has a prefix, you will always slam a suffix, and if it's a suffix, you will always slam a prefix. And once it has a prefix and a suffix, you can no longer add more modifiers to the item. You will get this message saying fail to apply item. Next up we have Orb of Annulment, and I'll also throw in Exalted Orb. If you find these two currencies going throughout the campaign, just hold on to them for right now. These currencies are pretty rare and you don't want to just be wasting these on any random items in the game, so just hold on to them for right now. I'll cover that in another video. Next we have Orb of Chance, so this upgrades a normal item to a random rarity. So as you can see, we have our magic one-handed axe, so that means you can't just go ahead and apply this Orb of Chance to it. The item has to be normal rarity. In order to make an item normal again in this game, you have to scour it with an Orb of Scouring, so this will remove all modifiers from an item. So long as the item isn't corrupted, which I'll talk about in a little bit, you can do that with an Orb of Scouring. And as you can see, we deleted all the modifiers from it and it's back to normal rarity. So now that the item is back to normal rarity here, we can go ahead and apply a Chance Orb. So the three outcomes here are it upgrades it to a magic item, rare item, or if we get really lucky and the base allows it, a unique item. So most commonly you'll get magic, followed by rare, and then if you're lucky, unique. I would say that if you're running through the campaign and you find random normal items on the ground and it's a base that looks decent to you, just hit it with a Chance Orb if you have any on hand. And as you can see, I actually got pretty lucky here and we hit rare on our first click here, but most commonly you'll get magic out of this. Next up we have Jeweler's Orbs here, so this reforges the number of sockets on an item. So as you can see here, we have our shea green boots and they have one green socket on them. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to reforge the number of sockets on an item. Just to let you know, two-handed weapons as well as chest pieces can have up to 6 sockets on them. Your gloves, helmet, and boots can have up to 4 sockets on them. And one-handed weapons as well as shields can have up to 3 sockets on them. With the exception of certain rings, you can have 1 socket on a ring if it's an unset ring, and certain unique rings can also have a socket on them as well. But anyways, outside of that, your jewelry cannot have sockets on them unless they're very specific rings. So just keep that in mind. Those are the limitations as far as sockets go on different items. So now that you know the limitation of sockets on an item, if we go ahead and apply it, this is a currency in which you want to definitely right click and hold shift. Every time we click it, it's going to randomize the amount, and once we hit 4, it's going to go ahead and say failed to apply item. Once you hit the maximum number of sockets on an item, it's going to go ahead and let you know that you basically can't screw it up and to stop clicking. Next we have Orb of Fusing, so this reforges the links between sockets on an item. So as you can see with our boots, we have these sockets which you put gems in. Gems need to be linked to other gems in order to basically get the buff from them. So in order to actually do that, you use Orb of Fusing. Keep in mind that once you actually get to the maximum number of links on an item, except for 6 links, you can go ahead and actually delink these if you want to. A good example of this is in my helmet. I have Vitality hooked up to Arrogance support, but I also have Defiance Banner and Arctic Armor in my helmet, but I do not want these two to be linked to Arrogance support because I don't want to be reserving too much life. So the game actually allows you to just go ahead and continue to play around with links on the item. And also just to show, if it is a 6-link item, you actually cannot delink it directly with this currency. You can delink up to 5 links, but you cannot delink a 6-link with Orbs of Fusing. Next up we have Chromatic Orbs here, so this reforges the color of sockets on an item. As you can see down here we have these shade green boots, and it's also important to mention that if you have an armor base, it really wants to roll a red socket, evasion bases like to roll green sockets, and energy shield bases like to roll blue sockets. So being an evasion base, these pair of boots really want to roll green. You can hit off colors while using this currency. As you can see here, I actually got pretty lucky rolling off colors, but more of the time than not, it's going to go ahead and try to roll green for you in this example. But just keep in mind, depending on the type of base, the more off colors you try to get, the harder it's going to be. Another helpful tip here is if you're trying to set up an item to use it for a gem link, what you can do is you can go ahead and put it in the workbench. And like I said earlier, evasion bases like to roll green sockets, but let's say I want to put red gems in here. What I can do is put it in the bench there and then type in red up here at the top. And as you can see under other, it will actually show you the option where you can actually apply via the workbench for the cost of chromatic orbs here to apply red sockets to it. Also, let's say this item only had one socket on it. I can type in socket and I can manually craft up here. You can manually craft up to a 4 socket, and also you can type in link. And when you type in link, you can also apply up to a certain number of links. Basically what this does is if you don't want to mess around with RNG, you can just go ahead and manually craft it. However, as you can see down here, to manually craft a 6-link costs 1500, which I believe the average is like 1200, so it's up to you if you want to do this or not, but I just want to make you aware of the option here. Next up we have Ancient Orbs and Engineer's Orbs, and I'm going to skip these for right now as they're not important. And we have Orb of Binding here, so this upgrades a normal item to a rare item with up to 4 link sockets. This is a really helpful currency for both new players and basically everybody at the beginning of a brand new league, because it's doing literally the 2 things that most people are trying to get. It is going to give you a rare item with hopefully some useful modifiers to your character, and also it's going to give you an item with 4 link sockets. So it's literally doing the 2 things that most people at the beginning of a league or the game in general are looking for. So if you go ahead and apply it, as you can see, now it fully linked the item here for this pair of boots, and also it made it rare, and we have 4 modifiers here, and hopefully some of these would be useful to your character. But overall, it's a pretty nice currency to get early on. Later on it becomes useless, but to a new player, definitely go ahead and use these on good bases if you find them. Next up we have Regal Orb, so this upgrades a magic item to a rare item. So as you can see, this item is normal, so you can't apply it to it. You have to upgrade it to magic first via an Orb of Transmutation here, or Orb of Chance if you get lucky. Once the item is magic, then you can use the Regal Orb on it to make it rare. And as you can see, now the item is rare. A thing to keep in mind is a magic item can have between 1 and 2 modifiers. However, because a magic item can only potentially have 1 modifier, a rare item can potentially only have 2 modifiers on it if you add an additional modifier via a Regal Orb, because a Regal Orb will always only add a single modifier to the item, so just keep that in mind. And also, it does not respect having a prefix and suffix. If you have a prefix on a magic item and you use a Regal Orb on it, you can actually slam another prefix on the item, because when the item is upgraded to rare, it can have up to 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes on it for a total of 6 modifiers. Anyways, sorry if that explanation got a little bit confusing. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Next up we have Orb of Alchemy, so this upgrades a normal item to a rare item. as you can see we have our normal pair of boots. And like I said earlier, a rare item can have up to 6 modifiers, a total of 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes. Via an Orb of Alchemy, you will always add at least 2 prefixes and a suffix, or 2 suffixes and a prefix. You can have anywhere between the combination of the two and the item having all 6 modifiers on it. And as you can see here, we completely filled up the item with 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes. Next up we have Chaos Orb, and this does exactly what you think it would do. It reforges a rare item with new random modifiers, basically the equivalent of an Orb of Alteration for a magic item. It does the same thing but to a rare item. As you can see here, we have a rare pair of boots and they have all 6 modifiers on them. If we go ahead and hit it with a Chaos Orb, it's going to reforge all these modifiers and give us something completely different. And as you can see now, the outcome is we have 2 prefixes and 2 suffixes, and all the modifiers are completely different and the item is changed. Next, we're going to skip some of these currencies as they're more advanced and something you don't need to worry about until endgame. So we're going to skip Veiled Chaos Orbs, Divine Orbs, Sextants, Harbinger Orbs, Orb of Horizons here. Next up we have Orb of Regret, so this grants a passive skill refund point. In order to use it, just right click on it and it will say you have received a passive respec point. In order to see your tree, just hit P on the keyboard and this will bring up your tree. In order to see your refund points, just look to the left of the refund button up here and it will tell you the total amount you have. In order to actually refund a point, hit refund passives, hit the point you want to refund, and then hit apply. When you actually have a point to spend, you'll see this little button down here. You can click this to also bring up your tree. And you can also even later on, once you get your Ascendancy, even refund your Ascendancy points. However, these cost 5 apiece, so just keep that in mind. Next up we have Orb of Unmaking, but this pertains to endgame, so don't worry about it. We already covered Orb of Scouring. We're going to skip Sacred Orb, as well as Vol Orb. These are important. Go ahead and save these because you will need these for your Atlas later on, so just don't go ahead and spend these. You definitely don't want to be using these up early game. You want to be saving these. And lastly, we have Blessed Orb here. So this randomizes the values of implicit modifiers on an item. As you can see here, I have an Amethyst ring. It's actually a normal rarity item because it's gray, but it actually has a modifier there. But that modifier is actually an implicit modifier. If we hold down Alt, as you can see, that chaos resistance is an implicit modifier. And inside the brackets there, you can see the value. It's 17 to 23. That is the range in which that chaos resistance can roll. And in order to roll that, you use a Blessed Orb. And as you can see, you want to roll it until you get the maximum value. And that's basically all there is to it. If an item has an implicit modifier, you want to be using these in order to re-roll that value. Anyways, that about does it for this video. I think I covered everything I wanted to. If you're still watching by this point, thank you guys so much. If you found the video helpful or informative, feel free to give it a thumbs up and also consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more content like this in the future. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Stay frosty.